Would anybody like to respond to that? Or add something to it? Or reflect on your own situation at your own university? Yes?
It's a discussion. If I reflect on my own situation in my university, it's a discussion because everybody knows that it's important and that they should have this writing throughout the curriculum. That would be a good improvement. But usually they don't have the staff or the time to put it in the curriculum to also make work out of it, because you need to give the feedback to the students on what they are doing well and what they are doing wrong, and so they can improve themselves. So it is an important thing, and a good improvement that's easy to make, at least if you think of it. Like it's an easy, you can think of it, but to realize it, it's quite hard. So I don't know, maybe the how do you say?
Well, I think it is hard, particularly in large universities. With I think small colleges have been able to enlist enough members of the faculty so that it really is effective. I would have to agree with you. It's very difficult in a large university. I think one way to start that I should have mentioned, which may even help enlist the faculty, would be to conduct in every school, if you haven't done it, every university if you haven't done it already, to do a rather simple test of the quality of student writing when students are just beginning, and then when they're just about to graduate, so that you can begin to make an assessment of how much improvement is actually taking place in student writing. I believe if for example, I think I mentioned yesterday, when I did that at Harvard, that was where we found there was a lot of improvement, except in the sciences where the students got worse, which is obviously a shocking thing that these extraordinarily intelligent students that we have majoring in science were actually slipping back and getting worse at something as fundamental as writing. But the point I'm trying to make is, once that evidence was apparent, it was a lot easier to get the cooperation of the faculty, because the faculty realized that this was just simply an impossible situation, and they were somehow responsible for it. These were their students, and they had to do something about it. So in that sense, the level of cooperation among the faculty and adding writing requirements and figuring out some way of giving feedback to the students on the quality of the writing assignments they turned in, their desire to do that was vastly increased once they realized that there was a real problem, and there wasn't just a president who dreamed up some new idea and was scolding them unnecessarily and taking them away from their research. So I think, again, facts will always help, and quite apart from that, you probably ought to know whether your student writing is improving in the course of your 3 years undergraduate in any case. But if you do have a problem, it's probably a lot easier to get faculty cooperation.
Would you all agree that written communication is important for undergraduate students to the level that Professor Bock states?
I agree on the communication skills, but I'm wondering for myself, in my own situation, if writing is the only way to reach that. I'm working for a university for the arts, which maybe is a special situation. Then I'm looking at audition, and we ask people to write a motivation letter. Well, that more or less not the best letters I ever get. Mm-hmm. But then I ask them, well, make a piece of dance or play some music. And what is the way what you like to express something? Well, they can do much better to communicate to me, but also to the rest of the audience. So my question is more or less, why this stress on writing, just writing, or are there more ways to communicate?
No, I would go part way with you. I think, and that's something I should have added, one of the things which we, I think, neglect in the United States is oral communication, which is clearly very important. How you can, and of course, if you do look at the research on that, it's a very high percentage of people in the United States are scared to death about getting up in front of other people and having to talk to them. And we also know that good instruction can overcome that in almost everyone. And that clearly would be a tremendous advantage for students in future life. Now, of course, the faculty become somewhat skeptical because they feel there's not enough intellectual content to it. Well, you have to deal with that. Maybe there's some way of doing it without giving them academic credit, but using some other device. But clearly we need to find some way of doing it. And one way also is to see whether there aren't opportunities, again, not just hire some instructor to teach them and then forget about it, but to build in opportunities for them to speak and try to persuade people and so forth, as you do when you give them student research projects and they have to report on those. All of them say it helped my oral communication skills. So there's nothing like practice. And certainly one reason why the writing abilities of humanities students improves more than anyone else is simply they read more and they have to write more than students in other areas. And the same way with speaking, I'm sure, if you get a little help at the beginning and then you get plenty of opportunity to practice, that would be fine. One of the ways we do that, and it's another point that I wanted to make about the kinds of programs that you're considering, is the really importance of what goes on outside the curriculum. I mean, you speak here about how do you create an environment for your honors program that will stimulate the best, the greatest progress on the part of your students. I would not be able to answer that in the United States without immediately bringing in things quite outside the regular faculty and the regular curriculum. I mean, it would start with the, and I'll get back to the oral communication in a moment because it ties in, but it would start with the student body, the selection of the student body, which would not be strictly on the basis of demonstrated academic merit, but I would try to get a student body of certainly of very intelligent people. I would pay a lot of attention to their academic ability, but I wouldn't make that the only thing. That I wouldn't do the way the French do and give an examination and everything is done based on the written score that you get on your examination, and then you say, well, this is eminently fair because it's on the merits. It's a very narrow way of looking at it. We would make some significant concessions in sheer academic ability in order to build a lot of diversity into our class, to get a class filled with people from different areas of the country with different backgrounds, different incomes, different religious backgrounds, different talents of various kinds. And then when you assemble a student body of that kind, then it becomes very important that it be residential. That because it is living together and having roommates who are very different from yourself, so that your Jewish student from New York ends up rooming with a student that we've somehow found from Iraq, and another student who is maybe African American, and they live together all year and they talk, and that's an enormous educational experience. Indeed, our students, when we always have an elaborate survey before they graduate to find out what they think of the experience. Invariably, they would say, when we ask what aspect of Harvard was most important to your education, they would say what I learned from my fellow students would be as important as what I learned in the classroom. And so if other students are going to educate them, let's have the most rich and diverse and interesting student body we can, because the education